And for any of you that are wondering why I'm saying that 3 weeks plus into the year, that's because me and a couple million of my friends worldwide spent the first couple weeks of this year grappling with COVID. So for us, we're just getting started with this year. And it, at the beginning of a new year, you might be wondering, okay, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, thought leader, you might be wondering, all right, what can I do this year that's going to give me a real business breakthrough in 2022? Um, I'm September Smith. Just to give you some background here, I'm a podcaster and I'm also a podcast guest media trainer. I work with entrepreneurs who want to bust through the noise and rise above their competition, stand out as the top choice expert in their field. And at the end of this video, probably even before that, I'm going to be telling you about something that could be the biggest game changer for your business this year and going forward. So, busting through in 2022. That is as important this year, and maybe even more so than any year prior. Just looking at some of the business stats, traditionally we've had this stat that in the first year of business, 1 in 5 businesses will fail. They're not going to make it. Since 2022, statistics are starting to show us that actually that has crept up to 1 in 4. 25% of businesses that start this year or have started in the last year are not going to make it within this first year. It tapers off a bit after that, but every year matters. When businesses fail, the same people that keep the stats on how many are failing also like to survey and get the results and some feedback as to causes and reasoning for this. And when business owners with failed businesses were asked what the top reasons were for that failure, 29% of those business owners said it was because they ran out of cash. They were too slow finding their customers and getting to sustain cash flow. 19% said that they were outcompeted. The term that they used was outcompeted. And what that basically meant was they failed to rise above their competition. Whoever was doing essentially the same thing they were doing, they never managed to kind of differentiate themselves and get up there so that people could see who they were and understand the value that they offered. And 14% of those failed business owners said that it was directly attributable to poor marketing. They were not getting their message out. They were not able to get their unique value proposition, why they matter, what they do for people, in front of the right audience. So for the growth and the survival of new businesses, but also established businesses, the imperative for us all is, well, you need to get found by more customers, and that has to happen quickly. You need to stand out from your competition, and you need to effectively get your marketing message out in front of the people that need to hear it. So, 2022, what's available to us? What are the tools that, on whatever it is, the budget that your business is operating on, how are you going to achieve that? Right now, the most effective and the most accessible way for you to achieve this is actually harnessing the potential of the podcast platform. And more specifically, anybody who knows me will not be surprised that my answer is, more specifically, do that by podcast guesting, being a guest expert interviewed on other people's podcast. Why? Because for virtually no cost to you, when you do it strategically, podcast guesting can get you in front of a wider targeted audience than any other free media out there. It gives you an elevated credibility and authority. And in that podcast or a media that have a much deeper user engagement, it really gets your message across much more effectively. So, of course, that's using podcast guesting with a strategy, with a plan. Because done right, podcast guesting is actually your most effective entry point into a wider media plan that can include guesting and promotion on TV, on streaming channels, radio, magazines, paid speaking. And this is all going to raise you up to a whole other level, both in reality and perceived. You'll be playing in bigger arenas and you'll be achieving bigger goals than you ever have envisioned to date. And all of this is with this very accessible entry point of podcast guesting as the foundation. So too often there is this misperception that just being on a podcast is all that's involved in podcast guesting. That could not be farther from the truth. You have barely scratched the surface. The average business person, and that's of course talking about the average business person who is not directly related to the podcasting industry or podcast guesting itself, the average business person either has no idea how to access and harness this amazing opportunity, this medium, or if they try, they really don't have a whole lot of success or impact. And therefore, they're locked outside of the enormous potential of this, what successful people are getting with podcast guesting. And usually this is because they don't have a vision of what they could be doing with this. It's more than just, like I said, going on someone's podcast. There's so many more things you can be using this like a tool. And they don't have the clarity on what they can be connecting that with in their business. So using podcast guesting in a sophisticated way to really have an impact. In fact, if you're trying to use podcast guesting without that vision, clarity, and a strategic direction, as I don't know about you, but I've seen way too many times, not only can it have a failure to get the results that you need and have that impact and really make a difference for your business, it can actually end up doing damage to your reputation and to your business. Why? Unlike most other forms of media, podcast guesting is broadcast media. It will be out there for years to come to be found. And your potential clients will see this. And if you don't know what you're doing and the results aren't maybe representing you in the professional light that you need to be represented in, well, that's out there as a billboard for all to see for years to come. So that's a problem for business owners, CEOs, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, change makers, for people who know that they're meant to be playing in a bigger arena, playing a higher game. They want to move further, faster. For people who want to break through the noise and rise above their competition and have their value recognized. Again, that not differentiating yourself from your competition is the number 2 reason for the failure of business. Like I said, done right, podcast guesting is the most accessible, most effective tool to do that. And having the strategy that's required to do that is what's missing from the average person's approach to podcast guesting. But that's the average person. That does not have to be you, and I don't want that to be you. If you're someone who knows that if you're someone that knows other people are totally up-leveling their brand, positioning, and business with appearances on podcasts and other media, and know that that is something that you really want to start rapidly employing for your business, I'm inviting you to my live 3-day hands-on training event, Podcast Guesting Prep School, which is all about the things that most people are missing: the vision, the insight as to what can be done with podcast guesting, the clarity on how you can be using it in your business and to achieve your business goals, and then the direction on where you can go with this amazing opportunity and how to get started. So, Podcast Guesting Prep School. This is action-based training. This is not come in and watch some videos or just self-access, recorded, pre-recorded stuff. This is live, in the room, reactive to your needs, because we're in it to have an impact for you. On day 1, I'm going to give you a vision of what's possible. I'm going to be using real-life examples of business people just like you who have been using podcast guesting and continue to use it in ways and for results that will amaze you. These are things you probably haven't even imagined to date. You'll be inspired, and you'll start to get a vision of what's possible and what the potential is for you. So that's day 1, vision. On day 2, we're going for clarity. How some of these examples can be used, tweaked, customized, and applied to you and your business goals. What are the business goals that can be achieved using this one? And how do we synthesize that? On day 3, It's all about direction. We have the vision, we have the clarity. Now, where do we need to go from here? And how you can begin to move forward and start putting things in place to make podcast guesting work for you and your business and to really take you to a whole other level in 2022. And these 3 days are going to give you incredible momentum to move forward and start making podcast guesting and a wider media plan really work for you. I've looked around because I knew that this was something that people were missing. And I was thinking, why isn't somebody doing this? Why isn't somebody putting this together so people can have an idea of what they should be doing or what they could be doing with this? Well, there was no other opportunity like this out there where you get shown the behind the scenes potential and the ways that other people just like you are having amazing results utilizing podcast casting as their springboard to a powerful, more growing media profile. So that's why I've put together Podcast Guesting Prep School. It's going to happen over 3 days. As I said, it's live, it's going to be hands-on. And in addition to the 3 training sessions, you're going to have interactive assignments that will reveal exciting possibilities for you based on what other people are doing and give you insights, inspiration, and clarity as to how you can be using this. There's going to be Q&A sessions as well as forum space for you to ask your questions, get them answered. There'll be feedback on your new ideas and inspirations about how you could be doing it and brainstorming around that. There'll be motivation and momentum from the other growth-minded people around you as they begin to create their approach to leveraging this media and others. And you'll get that vision, clarity, and direction on how you can start elevating your positioning, your reputation, and your renown, reaching new target audiences. In addition to all that, on day 3, there's a prize. There'll be 1 live working session with 1 prep school participant. And what this working session is actually the first session that I do with my clients that lays down the foundation and the plan for their podcast guesting and their media campaign. In that session, we'll synthesize their vision that they have for using podcast guesting, along with their prioritized business goals to see how they mesh together. Now, this is going to be something that is going to be of huge benefit to that participant. But in addition, just watching us go through that process, that's going to be huge value for all participants in prep school. That person is going to be the person who participates in all 3 days, who does the daily work for themselves, gets involved, and shares the most with other participants. Well, not only are you going to get the most out of prep school, you'll also get this session for free, and that's a value of $500. You can find all the details at you'd think I'd know the link myself, ofcoursepro.com/prep school. All the information about how you can get one of the few seats available for this next session of prep school. So if you want to rise above your competition and elevate how you position yourself and be as powerful and as influential as you know that you should be, I invite you to reserve your seat for podcast guesting prep school and get the vision, the clarity, and the direction that you need and generate amazing momentum in the energy of other growth-minded people to really kickstart this campaign. Once you've experienced what we'll be doing in prep school, once you've gone through this, it will change the way you see things. You'll have a new vision for how big you and your business can go. If you are ready to be seen as the thought leader in your industry, then click the link in the notes below. Prep school is the door. It's the entry into radically changing your life and your business. I am super excited to be sharing this wisdom with you, and I'm super excited to have you with me at Podcast Guesting Prep School. Seats are limited for this very small, intimate, very personalized 3-day event. This is going to be transformational. I promise you. Once you've experienced this, you will never look at how you're promoting yourself or what's possible for you the same way ever again. Like I said, grab your spots at, gotta check the link, ofcoursepro, all one word, .com/prep school. And tell a friend and go big together. The next session is happening February 15th to the 19th. There'll be ongoing sessions, but let's get you using podcast guesting powerfully to break through in 2022. Thanks for hanging with me.